Hello, and welcome to Let's Talk Midlife Crisis with your hosts,
Ashley
and Traci.
So today I kind of wanted to talk about more about midlife and some of the symptoms in both women and men that we experience and ways that we can kind of, get through it and thrive through it all, through all the change that we go through. We've put a lot of focus on things that we just as women go through,
Right.
Menopause and, empty nesting and some people have to take care of their parents. We've covered a lot of different topics, but we really haven't delved into the actual symptoms of the crisis that we're going
in midlife, through.
Yeah. So, I just kind of wanted to touch on that. And I, was kind of looking into it a little bit. And it was funny because as I was looking at the symptoms that they listed, I was like, oh, check.
Yes.
And I think I have, because I have started going through perimenopause, it's like, that's been so much of my focus.
Yep.
And then as I was reading through this, I'm like, oh gosh, yes, I'm also experiencing all this stuff. Right. So that makes sense.
Like burnout of your career and all these other.
And I think too, it's like kind of, I've said this before, it's kind of like you're an ending to a part of your life. And then like this whole new, and to me, it's at times can be like doom and gloom.
Right.
Because it's like, okay, now I'm on the backstretch.
Right.
I mean, I really could be, I'm 45 years old.
Right.
And, hopefully, maybe I'm halfway through my life. I don't know. Maybe a little longer. I don't know. But
right. Or maybe a little less. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be less. And so it's like to think, oh, halfway? Wait, what?
Yeah.
That went fast. How did I get here?
Yeah.
So it can be very gloomy and depressing.
Right.
And
scary, because for me, I'm, on that downhill slope to 60. And then that's scary. Yeah. It's like, okay, what if you only live to 75? That's 15 years. It's a blink of an eye. And and I get anxiety about that. Like, I feel like there's so much I still want to do and all that. But that in itself is creating a crisis for me. And you know what I think
is funny too? It's as you're aging and getting older and you kind of hit your adult years, it's like, different decades sound old.
Yes. Yes.
So it's like you hit your 30s and you're like, wow, I remember when thinking women in their 30s were old.
Right.
And then you hit your 40s and you're like, wow, I remember thinking,
Yes.
So, it's like, for you, okay, I'm in my 50s now. Is 60 really old? Because I used to think that was old.
Yes. Yes. And the scary thing is that your mind doesn't realize that you're aging and what your real age is. So it still thinks, you can do a cartwheel or, all this kind of stuff. And it's
your body says,
why are my hands hurting now? It's like, I don't understand any of this. And that kind of sends me into a crisis mode.
But, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the symptoms that I found that like I said, I was kind of going, oh, check. Feelings of nostalgia.
Yes.
I definitely am experiencing that.
Me too.
Just thinking about my childhood more, thinking about my adulthood, thinking about my kids when they were little.
Yeah.
Just things that, and memories that have probably always been there, but really resurfaced and thinking more about it, whether it was good or bad.
Right.
And just reflecting a lot
more.
Oh,
a lot. I remember recently reflecting on my childhood later, before I had children, which, we already talked about that I've started young. And I remember thinking, if my young self was standing next to me, because I didn't, have dreams to, be a nurse or, anything like that. So I never really had that vision for my life, but I thought, well, if my young self was standing next to me, looking at me now, who I've become, what I've accomplished through the years, in this reflection, I think I would be happy and proud of myself.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. I think that's one thing that, and this was, by the way, another thing that was on the checklist was excessive thinking about the past. But I think that's one thing that, a lot of therapists say is go back to that young girl and what would you say to her? That type of thing. I've heard that a lot. And I feel the same way because, sometimes like I'm going through some changes with my career and and I've had some, you know, a lot of stuff going on this past year, and it's just kind of reflecting on where I'm at in life and where I'm going, and that can be overwhelming, and you get really down on yourself.
Right.
And yeah,
Your own mortality, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I, you know, like you, had kids young. So, you know, I had dreams of what I wanted to do, but I didn't go that path.
Right.
And I chose that.
Right.
And I don't regret it. I think it would have been a great career to go into profiling for the FBI. I think it would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and mine was, I wanted to be, actually back then it was called a stewardess, but now it's a flight attendant.
Yeah.
But now that I've traveled a lot through my job.
You still got to travel.
I wouldn't want to be a flight attendant now. It's like, oh, hell no.
Yeah, yeah.
Hell no.
And and I just know so much more about myself now too. I'm like, really, Ashley, you could never be a profiler. Like, you are way too, you hold too much. You would take work home. You couldn't do it. It would just overcome you. But no, it's just funny. You know, I do think that, you know, I'm very proud of where I'm at. I'm proud of the way I raised my kids. I'm proud of what I've accomplished and what I've given, the life I've given them and myself and my partner together. And yeah, it's, you know, and I think a lot of people, you know, go through that, very similar things, but it's kind of funny how you get to this point in your life and you start really reflecting on all of that and excessively. Another thing they talked about was making impulse actions.
Oh, right.
I think I did that a lot more when I was younger, as do most people, probably, you know, in my 20s and things like that. But I think I might do it a little bit now, but I wouldn't say I'm really in crisis mode, and maybe not as bad as some people. But, you know, it's funny because we've joked about how, you know, women who are going through menopause, you know, they tend to have issues with their husband or their partner, and they end up divorced, and then, you know, he starts cheating with a younger girl or whatever, you know, just crazy stuff, buying Harleys, like, and so that's how I think, like, impulse. So I was really trying to think about this one, like, what are my impulse decisions, you know, and I couldn't really pinpoint anything.
I'm trying to think, and nothing comes to mind for me either, other than shopping. I really had to, you know, reel it in on the impulse buying things. But other than that, I don't really have a lot of, I can't really think of anything either that, you know, was very impulsive.
Yeah, I can't think of anything either.
This stage of life, you know.
But that was kind of what came to mind, was thinking about situations like that where, you know, people will buy sports cars or
men, I think, because I associate a midlife crisis with males versus females a lot, because I think as we were growing up, that's really all we heard about. They never talked about the women having a midlife crisis. Right. It was always men having the crisis.
And I think that's because in general, men tend to be more impulsive anyway than women do. Yeah. You know, I think women are probably more practical. And that's just our wiring, you know, and that's not saying all men. I just think generally they are, you know, a lot more impulsive. Feelings of regret, you know, again, reflecting on decisions you've made and where you are because of them, or how you would have done things differently. I think for me, where I could really relate to that, to the regret piece, was thinking of, you know, some of the ways that I treated myself or treated other people or situations, and, you know, you can be hard on yourself, but, you know, when you're in your 20s and 30s, you're still growing and learning and maturing, and, you know, and so, and we all, that's how we learn. That's how we become who we are, by making bad choices or, you know, doing things that we wish we would have done differently. But, I think, you know, you just kind of get to a point where you're like, what kind of person, you think more about the kind of person you want to be. When people talk about you, what are they going to say about you? You know, what are you going to be remembered
exercise
for?
When you were young, you had to write your obituary or something like that. I've actually thought about that.
What will people remember you for?
Yes.
And so I definitely have really, you know, been feeling a lot of that. Like, I can't be hard on myself for the stuff that I regret. It's made me who I am. And I'm pretty, you know, comfortable with what I think people say about me, or what they think of me, or what people do say about me.
Awesome
well,
individual.
Thank you.
You are.
People that or things that people do say about me, it makes me feel good. It's like,
Right.
wow, that's how you view me.
Yeah.
I feel good about that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think that, you know, you do kind of reflect, you know, and have some regret about things.
I think everyone has regrets.
Absolutely.
You have to have regrets in your life, right?
Yeah. Another thing was constantly comparing yourself to others. I'm pretty confident. I mean, you know, everybody has their insecurities, but I remember when I was in my probably late 20s into early 30s, I was working in an office that was mainly middle-aged women. I was probably one of the youngest people on the team.
Right.
And I remember one of the women, and I was friends with them. They were great friends, and, you know, it wasn't like a weird dynamic or anything.
Right.
And I remember one of them saying, you know, you get to be a certain age and people just don't even notice you anymore.
Yeah.
And I was like, what a strange thing to say. I'm this young blonde, you know, petite little, like, you know.
Yeah.
And
that demanded
and
attention when you walk in a room.
Right. And so I'm like, why would she say that to
Right.
me? Like, it was like, you know, Ashley,
Yeah.
one day
Yeah.
you're going to be where I am. But I at the time was so confused. I'm like, that is such a strange thing to say. Why would people not notice you?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm kind of getting that now, not to a point where I'm like insecure about it, but
Right.
I think because that happened and it just stuck with me so much
Yeah.
that now I'm like, oh, okay.
So impactful.
I see what
and
she's
I
saying.
definitely feel invisible, you know, when I enter a room anymore, and it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, look
Yeah.
at me. I don't even wear makeup anymore. I'm in, you know, a sweatshirt and
Yeah,
jeans and flip flops.
same
And
here.
I
Yeah.
don't dress up. I don't,
Yeah.
you know, try to command the attention.
Right.
But I remember when it happened, and I was in my most recent relationship, and I remember making a comment to him saying, well, what are you talking about? I'm invisible now. You know, but I remember thinking that, and I don't remember hearing it when I was younger or knowing that was going to happen.
Right.
I just remember
Realized
when
it.
it started happening, and then just trying to you know, just come to terms with it and to be okay with it, and to not let it affect your self-esteem.
Right.
And, you know, those
absolutely.
types of things.
Yeah. And it's interesting the way that you're treated by certain people too. You know, younger people, it can go either way. They're respectful to a point where it's like, okay, don't
ma'am.
you don't have to call me ma'am.
Ma'am.
It's okay. I mean, I don't take offense to it, but it's just like, please don't do that.
Right.
You know, but they're being respectful. You know, that's why I said I don't take offense to it. Or the ones that are just like, you know, annoyed. Like, okay, you're just some middle-aged woman, just, you know. And it's
but
just
when
like,
we were younger, the 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds were much different than I feel you and I are now.
Yeah.
Right? And that the whole world is. And I just live by this, you know, well, 40's the new 30, and, you know, then 50 must be the new 40 kind of thing. But I remember being younger and not even wanting to live past 40 because it just seemed so old.
So old, yeah.
But back, you know, 40 years ago, women that were 40 were old, you know, and
well, lifestyles, I think, were just a lot different.
Oh, much different. Yeah.
It's just become, you know, and I think a lot of it has to do with people just being a little more aware of their health and how long they want to live.
Yes.
And what makes them happy. I think there's been, you know, fortunately still not enough, but some more awareness around mental health.
Right.
And what you can do to live a cleaner life, you know, as far as eating and being active and things like that. And so I just think that there's been a lot more, because of so much discussion around it.
Right.
A lot more focus on it.
And I think there is a lot more discussion around it, and identifying those stages in life now to where it wasn't talked about, you know, by our, you know, parents' generation.
Right.
As much. So, definitely.
Absolutely. And then the other thing that they mentioned in here is that, you know, in women, these symptoms can be worse because you're, again, going through menopause. You're going through your own physical changes, which are really hard to face, you know, for a lot of people. And it's just kind of learning how to accept it and how to care for yourself. And then, you know, so then on top you have these midlife things happening. It's like, wait, what? Why? It's just everything all at once.
Right.
And men tend to be a little more angry or irritated. So I think, a lot of people just like to kind of go along and everything's the same and everything's good. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, I'm halfway through now.
Right.
I'm halfway through this journey.
Right.
I don't know, are things the same? Should they be the same? Why am I thinking this way? Why am I feeling this way? And so, yeah, it's just, obviously men and women handle things differently. So, ways that you can survive and thrive. This was really cool. I didn't really, some of these are really cool. So the first one is aim for long-term meaning rather than short-term happiness, and you'll likely find both.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So again, like you said, I feel like I'm on the downhill slope.
Right.
So you tend to lose sight of long-term meaning,
right. Right.
You want to find the
depressed. I think depression is easy to creep in then as well. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh my gosh,
I'm running out of time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you're finding short-term happiness by like, okay, what can I do? And I think that's where impulse might kind of fall in.
True. True.
But yeah, I think they go hand in hand. You still have to think of that long term.
Right.
And you kind of mentioned this after your, when you did your health episode.
Right.
And you said, you know what? I'm going to live my life.
Right.
It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Whatever comes at me, I'll deal with it when it does. But I got to live my life.
Right.
And that to me is finding long-term happiness.
Right. And trying to find things that to continue to be excited about, and to be excited about this stage in our lives.
Right.
I think it's a little bit difficult. And for me, one of the things that hangs over me like a dark cloud is my career and in my job. So in media, and it's just changed so much and evolved so much with all the social media and the fragmentation of consumption and all this kind of stuff. And in my industry, and I'm sure in many other industries, my thing is I refuse to be aged out. So it's even, and not that I'm looking for a job, but I did switch jobs a few years ago. And one of the things that I had to do was just as simple as my resume. I had to revise my resume because it made me
modernize it
seem so old.
Yeah.
And it's not that you have to lie about your age, but it's definitely not something that you want to bring up. Right. Because most people don't want to hire somebody that's almost 60 years old.
Right.
So that to me is something that I've had to, it's been hard for me to keep my chin up and keep a positive attitude. And I feel that I'm sure I've had to work harder at being knowledgeable and an expert in my own industry as somebody that's young right out of college, that all this just comes so naturally.
For us, it's a learning curve,
Yeah.
and for them, they grew, a lot of them grew up with the internet and grew up with digital
screens.
media. And so for us, it's a learning curve. So not only are we, getting used to this cool thing that we have now at our fingertips, but for someone like you that's in media, you really have to know a lot more behind it. And there's a lot of data, there's a lot of,
it's all about data now.
It is.
And different things, and staying ahead of the trends is so much more difficult than it used to be. And just trying to get rid of the way that things used to be done. And I talk to a lot of my friends in media that I've worked with for, decades, and they're experiencing the same thing. Imagine, people that work for television stations or, cable networks where the penetration keeps going lower and lower, and their salaries are being reduced and restructured, their commissions and their goals are being restructured. And so I have a close knit of work colleagues that we talk about this, and that we refuse to be aged out, and, kind of rally together to,
That's great that you have that support.
Yeah.
And
I've been in the industry a long time.
Yeah.
Right. With all the,
Right. Yeah.
seasoned individuals. So, yeah.
Another one was choose what matters most. And to me, this is like, it just made me kind of think of, like we've talked about before, like choosing your battles.
Right.
Right. And it's like, how important is this really to me? Is this something that I need to be dwelling on or stressing about, or do I need to make a change? You really have to think about what matters most.
Right.
And because those are the things that, ultimately, you're left with
Right.
near the end. You
Yeah.
know, it's like, I have everything that I really care about. I'm in a comfortable home. I have my family. I have my great friends that are my support.
Right.
Because, I mean, as you go through this and, as you age, it could become more physically challenging or mentally challenging. And it's good to have a good support group and be in a good place.
Right.
And focusing,
and changing
up to them.
what you're thinking and what's important to your to you in your life, because that also does change as you get older, right? When
Absolutely.
material things don't matter to me as much anymore. And I think one of the things that when we talked about regrets earlier, I personally want to make more of a difference. Right. Before my time is up here, with helping other people or,
Right. Yeah.
just anything, whatever that
you've
is.
been so, fortunate on your life, and other people aren't quite as fortunate, and it's nice. It feels good to help other people.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've done a little bit, throughout the years, and, I donate and do different things. And I know you have as well. We've both done some things, especially around the holidays, we'll sponsor
Helping
families
yeah.
And different things. But I just feel that in the whole scope of, giving, that I haven't really given enough or made that as much of a focus, because, of our busy lives and the children and the career and, just keeping food on the table and, all that kind of stuff. And you're exhausted at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But now I find myself thinking about how I can make a difference in the lives of others, right? And mostly, in our city, in our state, in our, United States, before I'm thinking of other countries. But it's, heart-wrenching to me,
Absolutely.
Ukraine, what those people must be going through.
Oh my gosh.
I can't imagine having your neighborhood being bombed and, all of the men having to go to war. It's not a voluntary situation, but just those types of things. And when I think of that are the times where I think I should be doing more with my life.
Yeah.
And actually when we talked last week about being an empty nester, one of my thoughts was, should I adopt someone? A child.
My goodness.
Yeah,
Wow.
just things like that. Because I'd always thought about it, right? But never did it because I had enough of my own.
Yeah.
And there's so many, children out there that need a family. But, all those reflection types of things are things that now enter my mind.
Right.
I'm going through my
matter
crisis.
to you more.
Yeah.
They matter to you more. And and that's, you need to think about what makes you happy and feels good. And again, what kind of person do you want to be? What do you want people to say about you or remember about you?
Right. And what kind of mark and legacy do I want to, live?
Absolutely.
Leave? Yeah.
Yeah. Also, this was really interesting. Lean into fear, not boredom. This is one we've talked about.
Yeah.
Because we've kind of gotten into this rut of being home, working from home, not getting out as much, not doing, and kind of losing the interest in that. Like kind of forcing, okay, I'm going to force myself to meet this friend for dinner.
Right.
Yes.
And so instead of being excited about it or not even thinking about it, it's like, oh, it's the weekend. And that's what we do on the weekends is we go out. And now, not so much.
So, and I think that helps keep you young. I mean, as a kid, it was just so natural and normal for grandparents to just sit around, they got up and had breakfast and then they maybe went for their walk and then, whatever. And that's great. But then I see nowadays you see so many older couples out hiking
active
and traveling and doing much more active.
Right.
And I think it keeps you young.
I do too.
And there's probably a fear around getting out there and doing I'm 70 years old. I can't do that.
Right.
Well, what says you can't?
Right. Well, and we've talked about this before too, but I think that the pandemic has also really, really intensified a lot of fears.
all ages, young and old.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But trying to stay excited and positive and owning it and being happy to own it.
Yeah. And I think staying busy, there's something to be said about, downtime and just spending time with yourself and relaxing and stuff like that. But I think staying busy and doing things like donating your time or
Right.
volunteering or doing something active, or, it's, if you're not used to doing it, if it's been a while since you've done it and you're like, well, I'm this old now, I can't, like, there's a
Right.
fear
Yeah.
around that. But if you just push yourself so that you're not bored, I think if you're sitting around bored, you're just going to dwindle away.
But no, yeah, that's such a great one, though. I really like that.
I like it too.
Because the fear, it encompasses so much.
Absolutely.
When you're in this midlife crisis, I think there's a heavy amount of fear.
Right.
Overlying a lot of different things,
Right. Yeah.
whether it's fear of being alone, or a fear of what your legacy is going to be. But definitely fear is a good one, overcoming it.
As a middle-aged woman thinking, I really want to go to this yoga class, but it's full of like young, beautiful girls, and I just am the old lady in there, you know,
Yes.
even just little things like that.
Yeah.
Like, lean into it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Right.
And you end up making friends and you feel great. And,
And maybe feel younger.
Yeah.
Surrounding yourself with younger individuals. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a quote on here. I'm not sure who this doctor is. Chris Dianigi. I hope I said that right. I probably slaughtered it. But he said, at every stage of life, you should be a rookie at something.
Oh.
Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
I was like, I like that.
Let's lean into that one.
Right.
Yeah, there's so much that we still haven't experienced.
Yeah.
That we don't know.
Yeah. Like, it's not over yet.
No. But you are championing a new career.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So then you're
definitely a rookie.
Yes, but there's also a lot of learning and studying that's involved.
Right.
And as I mentioned with my industry, all of the changes with digital that I had, I'm certified in Google, ads and all of this stuff, but, and different platforms like the Trade Desk, which is a programmatic platform and all this kind of stuff.
Well, and you all should know that Traci is the one that does everything behind the scenes, because I'm clueless about all of it. She runs the show, so.
You're so funny. But I remember studying for the first couple of badges, we call them badges in the industry, but taking tests, and I hadn't taken a test in like 40 years.
I am so nervous about taking my test.
Crazy. It was crazy. So a lot of it, I think the programmatic side and the video side became natural. I did very well. I excelled, and I was surprised. And I used to do these when I traveled, and a lot when I traveled to Miami, because it's a long flight, and it gives you that time to focus.
Right.
And I was traveling with my youngest, and I remember like being all excited and clapping for myself, and she was embarrassed, but I'm like, I passed. It's like, I did it. I passed. But those things were a little bit because of my, broadcast background with television, radio and stuff. So the video, it was very seamlessly a part of that, I felt, and I did well. But honestly, when I got to the Google and all of that, Facebook,
it can be daunting.
It's very daunting.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if I was actually excited about it. I was well more excited once I had passed the test.
Right.
But it was just learning something new and challenging myself to get out there.
Well, and I think you've done a really good job of being positive about it, because like I said, it can be very daunting and you can find yourself being very negative and not finding the motivation and being hard on yourself. And I think we all just need to remember, we're always students.
Right.
We're always students. We're always learning. It doesn't matter if it's a career thing or a personal thing, or, we're always
even
learning.
Parenting, we're still learning.
And we should always be a rookie at something. There should always be something that we're trying or learning,
experiencing new things.
Because not even just moving your body around, but also keeping your brain
going. Is very important. Yes,
absolutely. So I really it really kind of shed a light on a lot of different things that I hadn't thought too much about, but was experiencing.
Yeah.
And we've talked about so many other things.
Everything else under the sun outside of our main topic, which is midlife crisis. Awesome. We would love to hear from you. What are your thoughts about this subject or any other subject? We've gotten some great comments. Keep them coming. Let us know how you're feeling. Let us know what you'd like to talk about. Let us know if you'd like to call in and be a guest on one of our shows. We'd love to hear from you. And that wraps it up for today. And that just about wraps it up for today. Thank you for joining us on Let's Talk Midlife Crisis. Embrace the change.
Join the conversation on our website at letstalkmidlifecrisis.com or our Facebook or Instagram and YouTube channels. We'd love to hear from you guys.